Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. Why was Mark Hofmann so mad at the LDS Church? Brent Ashworth has some of Mark's writings, and we're going to find out what Brent thinks was the motivation for Mark's anger towards the church. So you're not going to want to miss this episode. Check it out. By the way, it is time to give away a copy of this book. So this book is going in the mail here, or unless you're in Utah, maybe I'll come see you. So here we go. I'm going to pick out a name here after they're all sorted pretty good. And the winner is, let's see here, what does it say? Rick Leimbach from Holiday, Utah. Oh wow, I'm coming up to Holiday tomorrow. Maybe I will see if I can drop this by, Rick. So congratulations. You're going to win, I better not put that back in the thing, this book of Show and Tell. So it's a fantastic book. Now, for those of you who didn't win, guess what? I have a second chance sweepstakes. So Brent Ashworth was so kind to give me. So all the people that are in this bowl already, you're going to stay in the bowl, so you don't need to re-register. But if anybody else would like to win this copy of William McClelland's Lost Manuscript, this is not a forgery. So Brent, this is a book by Brent Ashworth, and he's going to talk about this. There's only about 100 of these, so this is a really rare book. They had some printing issues, and so there's not very many of these in circulation. So if you'd like a copy of William McClelland's Lost Manuscript, and if you haven't already entered, go ahead and enter at gospeltangents.com/Ashworth. And you didn't win Show and Tell, but you can win this second book. So we're on episode 7 right now. There's going to be about 13. So probably 12 or 13. Haven't decided yet. I will be giving away a copy of this book as well. So if you've already entered for the first Ashworth book, you don't need to re-enter. But for the second one, if you'd like to get William McClelland's Lost Manuscript, that's going to be given away here, and it's autographed as well. So Brent is super nice. So anyway, let's go back to talk about Mark Hofmann's motives for getting angry at the church.
I found this going through papers that I got from, I think this group came from either Grunder or Rust, I don't know which. But to me, this answered the entire Hofmann deal right here. It's March 1st, 1980, so it's 2 months before I met him. I met him in, well, let's see, met him in April of, May of, so it's 2 months of 81, a year later. So this is a year before. Today I learned for the first time that the name of the man who sealed my grandparents, William Bailey Sears, and Athelia Viola Call. She was a plural wife at this point, because he was already married, Sears. This was told to me by my mom and confirmed later in the day by my aunt. His name was Joseph W. Summerhays, who's the great uncle of Janelle Pugmire at the Herald, so we've had some interesting discussions about this guy. He was quite a famous early Mormon. This marriage took place in Juarez, Mexico, February 21st, 1906, so it's long after the manifesto.
Even after the second manifesto? Even
after the 1904 manifesto. My aunt told me some other stuff about this. Grandpa and Grandma never talked about their courtship. They promised Summerhays never to reveal his name while he was still alive. Anyway, he goes on to say that this marriage was approved by President Joseph F. Smith. Well, when I told Mark that I'd given the mission presidents, letters.
Now, who's that letter from and to?
This is all in Hoffman's handwriting, and I found
so this is like a diary.
It's his letter to himself.
Oh, okay.
I learned today, kind of like, here's the evidence. This is the motive, I think, for murder, and for destroying the church. So he's going to pay back the church for what they did to his family. Because this was a real black mark, And I remember when his mother brought that suit over on his birthday and we were talking, she even brought it up, about her father being exed as a mission president. Well, that would be a really embarrassing thing. Here he's mission president to Samoa, and they ex him. And Mark's saying here, this was all authorized, and a temple worker, Joseph Summerhays, who was authorized by Joseph F. Smith to do it. Which I think is all crap, because if you read about Joseph F. Smith and what was going on, he had Rutger Clausen undo a relationship the same year, as this. Marriage was supposedly approved. That wasn't authorized,
Well, because what I understand, because you had the Smoot hearings,
right?
And Joseph F. Smith was called before Congress,
testifying, yeah.
They just grilled him,
they creamed him,
and so that was why he issued the 1904 manifesto.
Right, exactly.
Was to say, look, we mean business now.
Well, so the marriage of Rutger Clausen, who was an apostle in 1906, was a real concern. So they privately did a cancellation of sealing, on that one. So
on Hofmann's...
No, on Rutger Clausen, the apostle, who had an extra wife in 1906.
Because didn't he get kicked out of the quorum in 1906?
No, he ended up being the president of 12. He would have been president of the church if he'd outlived Heber.
Because Mackay became an apostle in 1906.
Right.
And they kicked out John W. Taylor and Matthias Calley.
For doing...
So Rutger Clausen got off scot-free?
Scot-free, yeah. They just canceled the marriage.
Wow.
But see, his grandpa, that was one of the things that disturbed Hofmann. His grandpa, he claimed marriage was, and there's no way to really, but it doesn't make sense because Joseph F. Smith, like you said, issued a second manifesto in 1904 and went out of his way to cancel Apostle Rutger Clausen's extra marriage, which was performed this same year, 1906. See what I mean?
Okay.
So that doesn't make sense that he would authorize another marriage in 1906. So the fact that the marriage was done in Mexico and all that tells me that probably there was no authority from the top, at least. May have come from a local leader, but not from the top, from the first presidency, for this marriage down there. But Hofmann didn't take it that way, and I think even his mother, it became a real embarrassing thing in the family, because she brought it up to me too, just out of the blue, the first time I ever met her. And I think that Hofmann grew up with that sense of the church's, hurt my family by exing Grandpa, And when I was going to open my first store over here in 2006, the name B. Ashworth was up on the front of it, and my son Adam was in there, and he had been sanding the floors. Eventually we put a rug over them, but he was sanding the floors. We were going to try to use them. And this young lady walks in and said, "Is this the same Ashworth who was involved in putting away my Uncle Mark Hofmann?" And Adam says, "Well, yeah, that's my dad. He's not here right now." And she said, "Well, he's been spreading it around that my great-grandfather, William Gailey Sears, had been excommunicated from the church for polygamy. And that's not right. He was never exed from the church." And Adam says, "Well, I'll tell him." So he told me, and I thought, well, gosh, I've been telling people that for years. I've heard that early on. Maybe I better stop saying that if it's not true. The very next day when I got to the store, this guy about Mark's age comes in and says, "Was my daughter in here yesterday?" And I says, "Well, if your daughter was so-and-so," she says, "Yeah, that's," he says, "Mark's my cousin, first cousin." Says, "She's out on a campaign to prove that Grandpa was never exed, but we all know he was exed." So I didn't have to quit very long telling that story. So, but I'm just saying, I'm telling you that because the family has been really fighting with us for a couple of generations, And to me, that seems the most logical thing of payback time that Mark found, Yeah, I'll pay him back. I just see that because he's got no qualms. He's got no testimony. He doesn't care, who he hurts. Yeah.
Wow.
And I can give you a copy of that if you want, but I think that's one little telling piece.
Sure, I'll at least get a picture of it.
Yeah, I think that's one telling piece of evidence. There's an awful lot of stuff in here. I've probably gone on too long. Do you want me to just see if we missed anything big?
Yeah, what else?
Did I tell you about the 116 pages? Did you want to hear about that?
Well, I don't think you told me about it. I knew that he was trying to.
Well, I got a call. It was also from my friend Jay Todd, and this was in '84. And he called me up and he said, I wasn't quite on the outs with him yet. And he said, Brent, we've heard that Mark Hofmann has found 116 pages. You know, I told you how President Hinckley always asked me about it. And I was kind of shocked at the phone call. And he said, we've heard there's some really negative things about the history of the church in there. You know, it's not at all like what we thought. Can you do a little investigating for us? You know, in the QT. I said, sure, you bet. And anytime you wanted to get Mark, you couldn't find him, you know. So I can't find him. I tried to locate him and couldn't get him. He also told me that he's given it to the Tanners, you know, Gerald and Sandra. And I mentioned this the other night when Sandra was on, because I'd never met him before. And I decided, well, I'm going to go down and meet the Tanners. I can't get Mark. So I went down there and talked to Gerald and Sandra, and I says, I've been told that, you know, by a pretty good source, that Mark Hofmann has found the 116 pages and has given you a copy or brought them to you. And they both laughed at me. He says, oh, we'd be the last people he'd bring him to. I says, really? He says, yeah, because we think his Salamander Letters are a forgery, and we've written that, you know. Oh, yeah. And I says, really? I didn't know that. So I'd met him for the first time down there. In fact, Sandra pulled out of her desk this rare document of Brigham Young's, the printed martial law order for Utah, making Utah under martial law because the Army's coming to Utah. And I said, good grief, where'd you get this? He says, oh, it came through my family. Brigham Young is my great, whatever, you know.
Grandfather.
Yeah. And I says, that's interesting. And Gerald says, oh, he would never bring it in here. No, we haven't seen it. And I thought while I was there, I thought, this is a great crowd for me to bear my testimony. So I did, you know. And I said, you know, I know Joe's, like the other night, I said, I know Joseph Smith's a prophet, and I know we have prophets and the church is true. And Gerald, his reaction was, well, we can respect that. That's very, you know, we appreciate you're sharing that with us, and we can respect. It wasn't at all like I thought it might be. They were very, very nice, kind, and thoughtful in their response, you know. And I thought I was making a point, saying it in front of, you know, repeating them. But they're very nice about it. They says, yeah, we can respect
Sandra's
that.
Extremely friendly and nice.
Oh, I know. But I didn't know him. That's the first time I'd ever met him. And all I heard is this reputation of these evil Tanners.
Horrible people, yeah.
Well, they weren't. They were nice folks, and they had a difference of opinion. I don't mean to justify them in any way, but they treated me nice anyway when I bore my testimony. So I got my answer from them, and then I got a hold of Mark about a week later. And Mark almost convinced me they were authentic. You know, at our first meeting, he said, in fact, he showed me, he had in his pocket some flight tickets to Bakersfield, California. And he says, I'm going down there to pick them up. He says, I've seen them. He says, we're flying down. We're down there the other day. And I don't know if they had a relative there or something, or what made him go to Bakersfield. But at any rate, these flight tickets he pulled out to show me that he was flying down there and picking them up. And I was really excited, on the edge of my seat for several days, you can imagine. And he gets back, and I'm on his doorstep, and he says, oh, I found out they were fakes. I said, well, gee, Mark, what made you think they were fake? He first described to me what was in them, you know, when the first meeting. He says, oh, Father Lehi's out in the desert, and, you know, with his family, they're wandering around, and they discover this mine out there. And the mine has gold, and it has silver, and it has diamonds, and it has, you know, everything you can imagine in it, you know, plates, everything, you know, of value in it. He tells me all that's in it. And then the next time when I go up there, after he's going to pick them up, he tells me, oh, they're fakes. I just wrote them off. I says, Mark, wait a minute here. I says, you were so excited about telling me what was on them and all that. And I thought he says, well, they're not real. I've examined them. He says, for one thing, they're not 116 pages. They're only 60 and a half, you know, pages. I says, well, maybe they got the pages wrong, you know, or something. I says, I can't imagine anybody creating that. He says, of course, I didn't know he was the world's greatest forger at the time I said that. And, I said, I can't imagine anybody creating a manuscript like that. And he says, He says, yeah, well, it's a fake. It doesn't sound at all like. I says, well, Mark, you know, I'm a collector, right? I says, what do you think we could get them for? I said, I'd like to add that to my collection. I can't imagine anybody doing a forgery like that and me not going after him, you know? And, then he got real defensive at that point. You know?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he didn't want to go any further with it. So every meeting thereafter, for several weeks, I was pounding him on, you know, and he said to me, oh, I'll bet that first meeting on that, he says, I'll bet they'd want $5,000, which was a lot more money then, you know. He said, I'll bet they want $5,000 for the forgery. I says, Mark, if you can get me that forgery, I'll pay you 10. That's what I told him. And I think I got his attention, you know. I think he was really worried at that point. I don't know. I'm trying to put myself into the skin. But I got back with Jay Todd on the phone, and I told him what had happened. I said, and I offered him 10. There's this pause, and Jay says, well, I hope you don't expect us to pay that. And I said, oh, no, I did that on my own. I went out on my own on that limb. And, of course, Hofmann, what he produced for me when I pestered him enough is he produced an outline. And the outline of the 116 pages, in fact, I've got that in here somewhere. It's an outline, you know, and he created this outline that had 60 and a half pages, and I think it was 4 pages long. All I got originally was the first 2 pages on both sides of a page, you know, of the description of, you know, Father Lehi's, you know, I don't know, kicking a rat in the desert or something, you know, this kind of stuff goes on like that. Little comments, his creativity. When the Hofmann bombing took place, the police asked me about it, and I says, somewhere I've got that outline. I don't know where it is. I couldn't find it. And we had this one garbage can that was in my dad's old workroom down in the basement of the old house, and it's the only can in the house that never got cleaned out. And I was going through it several months later, and here I found wadded up, like I keep notes like that now in my pocket. Opened it, it was this list from my wife saying, pick up some milk, pick up some butter, pick up some bread, you know, that kind of a list. I opened it up, it's Hofmann's outline. I'd written her list on the back of it and tossed it, not realizing what it was. So that's how we found his outline. And then when I got the stuff from, I think from Al Rust, there was pages 3 and 4 of the outline in there, so I could put it all together. And I gave that to the police, and they appreciated it. But he had, as you know, he had a whole. If you want to see, I can show you his physical work, some of it on the 116 pages. If you want to see that, I can show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got another container just on the other side of this. Okay. I brought down the other day. So maybe when we're done with this, I can show you that. Yeah. He had a card system. He had about 30 little card files, 3x5 plastic card files, and he had every word in the Book of Mormon numbered in the first edition. Because if you're going to create 116 pages, you got to have it jive somehow with the actual book that was published. And because he knew even then the Book of Mormon and the Bible had all been computer analyzed. So if you're creating a lost manuscript, you've got to have something that at least fits, you know, even if it's totally different writer, that fits in with what's there. And I didn't realize that he had an IBM in his room downstairs in his house. In fact, I think I was the only one that ever saw his room. His wife said on the tape that she never got to see the room. You'd go by, you'd never get him to answer the phone. I don't know anybody that ever got an immediate answer to a phone call to Mark Hofmann. Anybody. And the police say that in here too.
Yeah, I know Kurt Benson said that too.
Yeah, you never got. So I'd go by his house, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I went by his house quite regularly. And one day when he wasn't there, Dory said, her name was Dora Lee, but she goes by Dory. She said, well, the phone downstairs works. This one up doesn't work. I said, oh, really? Okay, so I go downstairs, and I get on the phone. It's on the wall, and the door to his office is open, you know. So the police asked me later, can you describe what was inside his office? I says, no, it just looked like a messy room to me, you know. And, I mean, I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't know. I didn't realize that he had a blow up of that first picture with President Kimball looking through the, the glass, and that he put a note on there, "Some profits, huh?" or something like that on the bottom of it. I didn't realize that. The police found it when they searched his home later. And his wife said how she wasn't really allowed into the room, and it was one less room she had to clean, But he had the door open when I was there, and the funny thing about this story, not so funny, is that when he came home and I was downstairs, he was really mad, I mean, he let her have it. He says, "Nobody's supposed to go down here." Right. He kicked me upstairs. This is the only time I ever went downstairs, was she let me down and use the wall phone. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But at any rate, there's so many little ins and outs of the story, there's no way they could have told it. I thought they did a good overall thing. Right. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brent Ashworth. In our next conversation, we'll talk about what Brent thought of the Salamander letter the first time it was read to him.
It was Hofmann that offered me the Salamander letter, and it was $50,000. And he said, "Lynn has it. Lynn found it." This was Hofmann. "But would you like to hear what was in it?" I said, "Well, yeah, it'd be interesting." He read me the Salamander letter for the first time. And I told him, I says, "Mark, that's an obvious forgery." And he was really upset about that, because I never called anything of his a forgery. This was the first time.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, sign up at patreon.com/gospeltangents, and for $5 a month you can hear the entire interview without any interruptions. If you'd like to see the whole video, that's just $8 a month, and you can sign up either at youtube.com/gospeltangents or on our website at gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button, or you can go to patreon.com/gospeltangents, and I'll just need to make sure that we're Facebook friends, and I'll add you to our insiders group, and you can see the entire interview uncut. If you'd like to get PDF transcripts of our interviews, those are just $10 a month. And for just $15 a month, I will send you paperback versions of our transcripts as soon as they come out. Or, of course, you can buy them on Amazon as well. Go to Amazon.com and do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can see all of our transcripts there. Don't forget to sign up for our updates at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Of course, you can follow us at Gospel Tangents on Twitter. To hear our interviews updated to your podcast player, go to tinyurl.com/gospeltangents, and make sure you give us a 5-star review. And of course, you should show your support for Gospel Tangents with one of these cool t-shirts, like this green one, or light blue, sport gray, royal blue, purple, of course black, beautiful gold, and of course Utah red. I probably left out some colors, but if you want to see more, go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get one of these. So once again, thanks for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again.